Have you ever just looked around outside and wondered how it all fits together? Well, today we're going to climb the ladder of life itself. We're going to see how every living thing is connected, from one tiny creature all the way up to the entire planet.
So, let's start with a simple question. Picture a single squirrel you see scampering around in a park. How in the world does that one little animal connect to the grand scheme of things? That's the mystery we're going to unravel, and we'll do it by climbing from the small and familiar all the way to the global scale. All right, let's start at the very bottom, the first step on our ecological staircase, the absolute most basic building block of life. And that first level is the organism. It's really that simple. An organism is just one single, individual living thing. It's a starting point for pretty much all of biology. So, that squirrel we were talking about? Yep, that's an organism. But so is the giant oak tree it's climbing. So is a single frog in a pond, or even a single bacterium that's way too small for us to see. They're all individual players out there on the stage of life. But of course, things rarely live all by themselves, right? They're usually in groups. So let's take the next step up and see what happens when you get a bunch of them together. And our next level is a population. Now, the definition here is really key. It's not just any group. It's a group of the same species, all living together in the same area. And that distinction is crucial for scientists who are studying how these groups grow and stay healthy over time. So you could be talking about a pack of wolves that roams a specific forest, or a whole school of salmon swimming up a particular river. It even counts for plants, like all the maple trees in one city park. Each of those is its own population. And to bring it back to our little guide, the squirrel, if you're in the park and you see 10 of them running around, you're not just looking at 10 different organisms anymore. You're actually watching a squirrel population in action. Okay, so we've got individuals and we've got groups of the same species. What happens when all these different groups start to mix and mingle? Well, welcome to the living neighborhood. This brings us up to a community. A community is basically all the different populations. We're talking plants, animals, fungi, you name it, that are all living and interacting in the same area. It's the whole living part of the neighborhood, all the residents. Let's think about that park again. The community isn't just the squirrels. It's the squirrel population, plus the pigeon population, plus all the different insects, all the types of trees and grass, and even the invisible fungi and bacteria that are doing their thing in the soil. All of it, together. Now, this is a super important point, so lock it in. A community includes only the living things, what scientists call the biotic parts. Keep that in mind, because it's the key to understanding our very next step. Because you might be asking, well, what about the non-living stuff? What about the sunlight, the rain, the rocks? To bring them into the picture, we have to take one more step up that ladder. And that brings us to an ecosystem. This is the game changer. While a community is just the living, or biotic parts, an ecosystem includes both the living things and the non-living, or abiotic factors. This is where you see the whole picture of how everything works together. So what are these abiotic factors? Well, think of them as the stage where the play of life happens. It's the sunlight that provides the energy, the water that everything needs, the rocks and soil that make up the landscape, and even the temperature. They're the non-living foundations that life depends on. You know, a pond is the perfect way to picture this. The fish, the frogs, the algae, those are the biotic, living parts. But the water they swim in, the rocks on the bottom, the sunlight warming it all up, those are the abiotic, non-living parts. You put them all together, and bam, you've got a complete pond ecosystem. So we've gone from a single organism all the way up to a full ecosystem. Now it's time to zoom way out and look at the biggest scales of all. Next up, we have the biome. A biome isn't just a local park or pond. It's a massive region of the world, and it's defined by its specific climate, which then decides what kinds of plants and animals can actually live and thrive there. And you already know these. Think about the huge, hot, and dry deserts of the world, or the cold, frozen tundra way up in the Arctic, the wide-open grasslands at the plains, or the warm, wet, and totally packed rainforests. These are all major biomes. And finally, we've made it. We're at the very top of the ladder, the biosphere. This is the big one. It's the sum total of all life on Earth and every single place where that life can possibly exist. I love this way of thinking about it. The biosphere is the living layer of our planet. It's this thin, incredibly precious film that stretches from tiny microbes miles underground all the way to bacteria floating high up in the atmosphere. It's everything, all of life, all at once. So there we have it. We went from one squirrel all the way to the entire living planet. We've climbed the whole ladder. Let's do a quick recap just to see this great web of connection one more time. Here it is, our staircase of life all in one place. We start with a single organism. A group of them makes a population. All those different populations interacting form a community. You add in the non-living environment and you've got an ecosystem. A massive region with its own climate is a biome. And all of it, the whole shebang, is our biosphere. When you lay it all out like this, you really start to see the incredible connections in nature, from the tiniest things to the whole globe. And that brings us to one final, really important question for you. Now that you see how it all fits together, what role do you, as a single organism, play in your own ecosystem? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.